Hello and welcome into another edition of A Better Way to Food Truck. My name is Jay McFarland, and today we're going to speak with Julie Walsh. Now, Julie is the owner of the Detroit Deli food truck. She's not in Detroit, though. She's in Fargo, North Dakota. She's going to tell us how she ended up owning a food truck. And I really want you to pay attention because she's very honest about what it's like to own a food truck, all of the good and also all of the hard work and the struggles. And she also has some insights on how to get started if you are looking at getting into a food truck. So I can't wait for you to hear her story. Now, a reminder, this podcast is produced and sponsored by Order Up Apps. If you're looking for a better way to food truck, don't look any further than Order Up Apps. They're there for your ordering and your marketing needs. Not only are they official Square partners, they also offer custom branded ordering apps and marketing tools made just for your food truck. So get your 14-day free trial at orderupapps.com today. Well, listen, I'm really excited to talk to you today. I'd like to just start out. Tell me a little bit about your background and how did you end up in the food truck industry?
Well, it was never my intention. I grew up in Detroit. I traveled through my 20s and I picked up cooking because you could get a job anywhere and you could get a meal and you could get a paycheck and you could kind of go anywhere. And I wanted to travel around in my 20s. So I lived out west, Vegas, Colorado, all that kind of stuff. Came back to Detroit, worked there for a while, and we kind of moved around. My boyfriend is from Fargo, North Dakota, and we had a baby and decided we wanted to come here, and I thought it would be a good place to start a business. And kind of took a couple of years to figure out what Fargo needed as far as what they were. Something that I just didn't want to start cooking for something that everyone had.
Yeah.
So spent a couple years doing that and tried to start a deli because they just did not have any really good deli food here. So wanted to start a deli and couldn't get the funds to do it. I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want any backers or investors or anything like that. And I had nothing. So it's kind of hard to get a loan.
Yeah.
And I got a loan through the SBA, and which they have been a godsend. And I definitely would recommend when you go through the SBA, you have to get rejected by a bank first. And some people might think that that's disgraceful or, oh, I failed or whatever. But I'm going to tell you that was a godsend and it was the best thing that ever could happen to me. So I would really encourage people to try any local government funding or grants or any of that kind of stuff to get started, because they're going to be more invested in you as a company and helping you. So I had a loan through the SBA and it was for a certain amount of money. And I'm like, what can I do with this money? And building a truck was what we could do with that budget. So my boyfriend and I built a food truck in our backyard.
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
Never really thought that was what I was going to be doing with my life. So.
How did you go about finding out like what you needed to have for the build out, like what the code requirements are and those types of things?
Well, and just a little bit more background. We both went to art school in Detroit, College of Creative Studies. He is more a designer and computer person, and I'm more of the artist, free spirit.
Okay.
And so it really helps to have, I wouldn't recommend building a food truck if you have no experience mechanically or because I mean, he can work on cars and trucks and all that kind of stuff. And so that helps a lot. So I
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't recommend that if you're someone who does not like to get your hands dirty. But so I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I just how you.
I'm getting off
I mean,
track.
it's a lot of work and effort to figure out the code for your specific
Oh,
area.
yes.
All of those
Um,
requirements.
Yep, and we did a lot of phone calling. You can call your government agencies. When I reached out to North Dakota, when we built the truck, it was 5 years ago now, and food trucks. It's kind of Fargo is kind of in a bubble where once you 5 minutes out of Fargo, nothing but fields,
Mm.
and so they kind of run on their own little timeline and little behind the times. So when I would call people here, they were just like, good luck and
Mm.
do whatever you want to do. So ultimately, we wanted to kind of stick with, like what works and to sell the truck or if we were going to move or something like that. So we ended up calling Minneapolis because that's kind of the closest, biggest city to Fargo. And so I implore people that if you're doing this, just call people. And if you don't get the right answer the first time, you just keep calling people
Yeah,
until
until
you
you.
have someone that can help you.
Right. Right.
So
The other thing that I'm always fascinated by and curious about when it comes to food truck operators is your name selection and your menu selection, because you're gonna paint this truck, you're gonna commit to something, just like a restaurant when you buy signage and you have menus produced and those kind of things. Tell me a little bit about that process. What did you name your food truck, and how did you come up with your menu?
But the name of the food truck is Detroit Deli. Coming from Detroit, I wanted to kind of give homage to where I really found my passion for, I wouldn't say being a foodie. I didn't know Michigan was as foodie as they are until like I
Mm-hmm.
moved here. And then like I said, spending a couple of years going around Fargo, going to all the restaurants and everything and really seeing what people need. Um, I think a really important thing that people miss is that, and not to say that it's a bad thing, but they're like, I'm just going to do barbecue or taco and then, I mean, there's so many tacos, there's so many barbecues,
Yeah.
and not to say yours isn't as good or wonderful or whatever, but I wanted something that set me apart, that was unique, and that I was bringing something to the community that they didn't have before I started. And so that was kind of my intention, my intent. So the Detroit Deli was pretty easy because once again, we kind of come from a more of a creative background where those are kind of things that we sit on the porch and have some porch drinks and talk
Mm.
about all night.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we set up before we built the truck, we set it up in VR. My boyfriend created a VR plan that you could put on a headset, you could rearrange things, you could
Wow.
talk
Yeah.
about, the placement of things.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I would say for people starting a food truck, and it's always been a little bit of a contention that people think it's like really easy or anyone could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't one day wake up and say I want to be a lawyer and then just decide I'm going to be a lawyer.
Right.
So there's a lot of work and planning, and I have 30 years in the business and I kind of know how to do things. So there's a lot of learning curve.
Yeah.
So if you're starting out and you are one of those people that are like, I have my life savings from whatever I did before and I want to do this, I would really implore people, and when people ask me about starting a business, do a business plan. And it is the hardest thing to do, the most boring thing to do, but I can't tell you how beneficial that was to do that. And I have done probably 3, 4 business plans in the last 4 years because when I started, I was going to do a proper deli. And that didn't work out. So then I had to go and kind of tweak everything and, do it for the food truck. And in that, you really get a sense of what your business is.
Yeah.
So, like with the food truck, it's like, what kind of equipment do I need? What kind of money do I need to make everything happen? And then you go on lines, and I mean, Google is such a great asset now because you can go and you can Google how much a cooler is, or you can whatever you need. So it's really, to me, and I don't know if anyone has taken my advice and everyone that I have told that to, but please start a business plan. The very first thing you did. It took me about a year to do my business plan, and it is not something I like to do. And it was a big struggle, but I did it, and I came out so much stronger in what I wanted my business to be. And I would really say a very good piece of advice is before you invest any money, before you buy your truck or trailer or whatever, really have a strong foundation of what you want to do and have your name and have, all in your equipment picked out, because then you could be like, okay, I need a trailer or I need a truck or, kind of thing. But we picked Detroit Deli just because I'm from Detroit. The menu was definitely, over the years, I have stacks and stacks of folders with menus and ideas. And because, that's what I've done is, my trade is cooking.
Right.
So, and really going through that, really seeing what the community needed or was lacking, or like I said, something that I could bring to the community that they didn't already have. Because I really, doing this and being an entrepreneur and starting something on my own, I just really wanted to have something that I was going to be proud of at the end of the day. And, sponsoring a baseball team or, donating to the charities that we do the truck at, or, I wanted to become an intricate part of what Fargo was doing. So that was really important to me to have that.
I love that.
Yeah. And so
I'm curious. So you've gone through this process. You've built a food truck in your backyard. You've got the SBA loan. You've got your business plan. But, there comes a point when it all comes together, and now you get in the driver's seat and you're going to go somewhere. I always love to hear, what is that first experience like when you put your foot on the gas and you're going to now go and sell food? Describe that, the emotion of that a little bit. And were you effective from day one, or were there a lot of lessons to be learned? Yeah.
A lot of lessons. My first lesson is, and then also with my boyfriend being a graphic designer and stuff, it's important to have also in place, you have to remember, we have printed menus, we have a website, like a working website. That is all going to cost you money. If you're not real fluent in designing and doing all that stuff, you're going to need someone to come up with your logo.
Yeah.
You're going to have either a wrap on your truck or a logo. I saved a lot of money with the fact that my boyfriend is a graphic designer and he works for a sign company.
Oh, great.
And so 6 o'clock in the morning, the day we were supposed to leave for Sturgis, South Dakota.
Oh, Sturgis, yeah.
We were putting on our graphics. We dropped the baby off at the grandma's, and we stayed up all night with big floodlights on the truck, and we put on our graphics throughout the night.
Wow.
And finished up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I packed the truck and packed everything that I could fit in the back of a truck, which was a lot.
Yeah.
Way too much stuff. And then took a nap and we drove we had some buddies in Rapid City that we were staying with, and we drove to Rapid City, South Dakota, which I would say, to sum up how I feel, every time I get in the truck, it's exhaustion, it's heat and sweaty, and just really overwhelming. And please don't let me do anything stupid because I've only had 2 hours of sleep. So, like, you really need to focus. There's always a huge, even to this day, the hour before you start is always just overwhelming. Like, you're short of breath, your anxiety, all the things of like, what do I need something else? Did I forget something? Because the thing that's really important is you have to be very organized, list, because once you're somewhere, there's no, oh, I forgot this and I can run to the back to get it or something like that. So there's a lot of that, but people think, oh, food truck, you roll up and it's fun and all this stuff. And to be honest, like, when we get set up and we're cooking, that's probably the most laid back time of owning a food truck because you're done. It's like whatever you have on the truck, that's what you're working with. And if you forgot the ham that day, well, you don't have ham sandwiches.
You don't have ham,
You have to really learn to use what you have at the moment and lists. Like, I always have like 2 lists going on, always have to be very organized. And at the beginning, I mean, after 4 years of being on the truck and doing this, like when I first started, I would be like, this is the day that I'm going to fail. Like, this is the day that, because I'm like, I've gotten this loan, I've built this truck, like I have, like at first I had to cold call people to get gigs and stuff like that. Or the other wonderful thing that has happened is where I got my loan with the SBA. They let me sit in their parking lot whenever nice. I don't have something to support my business in something that, they want to see me successful, and the fact they, want to nurture me and to grow. And once again, actually the banks that did deny me, I do lunches there.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
But it's not in a supporting way, like, hey, sorry, we didn't give you a loan, we want to support you. It's just more like you're a food truck, and you're a business now. But the SBA has done nothing but amazing things and nurtured me along the way, helped me, kind of refinance things and redo things. So they've really been an intricate part of me being successful.
That's awesome. And that first Sturgis event, was it successful? Did you sell a lot of food at that event?
No.
You didn't?
Well, it was really the placement. I was at Buffalo Chip Campground, and we thought it was a good idea to set me up by this man-made lake they have where everyone kind of comes and parties and swims, and they have like a stage for the after party and all that kind of stuff. Well, I got kind of stuck there, and I didn't have any posters or anything to put around the campgrounds. And when I went out there, I was the first food truck to be at the campground. So unfortunately, they didn't know really how to utilize me. And they kind of stuck me in one spot, and I couldn't move once everyone kind of got there. And so I was kind of set away from where everyone was or where all the other trucks were and stuff like that. No fault of anyone.
Yeah.
I agreed to the spot. We all agreed. It was great, and it didn't work out. After a week of being there, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make $1 million like I thought I was. I just ended up having some fun and meeting a lot of really cool people. And sometimes when you do festivals or events like that, you really have to know, am I making money and I'm pumping it out and this is the day that I'm going to pay some bills? Or am I going to call it a wash and I'm going to just have some fun?
Mm,
So
yeah.
you can't get too down on yourself about
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it.
right. It's important to know. So, in your
Yes.
current business model, are you doing mostly catered events? Do you have a route? Is it a combination of both?
Well, because my truck is a little different, we do everything pre-order.
Okay.
Um, and I do want to mention one thing, kind of go back a little bit about the menu, like picking your menu and doing all that kind of stuff. We do have a sandwich that is dedicated. It's called the Salami Kilpatrick, which was kind of, um, wouldn't say a little nod, but Kwame Kilpatrick was the mayor of Detroit and didn't do so great. And
Right.
he actually, Trump just pardoned him from
Mm-hmm.
jail in
Mm-hmm.
Texas, but spent a lot of Detroit money and stuff like that. So we kind of have a sandwich named after him, is a little bit of whatever, however you want to take
Yeah.
it. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who, at the same time, was opening a pizza joint in Detroit, and he also took the name and has the pizza Salami Kilpatrick. And so it's kind of fun to have fun with some of this stuff and not take everything so seriously.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just so we are with the fact, I think that I didn't have an intention of what I wanted to do wasn't necessarily a truck. I did struggle a little bit at first with the fact that we do everything made to order. We cut all the meat, fresh, on the slicer, not
Mm-hmm.
for, like we cut it beforehand, but so it was a little bit of a struggle at first to kind of find our place, because going to lunches and people have an hour lunch and you have to be fast, and
Mm-hmm.
so there was a little bit of a learning curve there. But I don't do festivals. I don't really do a lot of that kind of stuff because I've had the experience that people want elephant ears or fried food, and I have a very heavy salad crowd and and sandwiches. So
Mm.
it's not necessarily something that, like, when and people here are still very heavily into fried food and stuff, like at the
Mm-hmm.
festivals. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just never really worked out. This year, I think because of COVID last year we sat a lot at 4th and Main, which is the SBA building and stuff like that in their parking lot. This year, I think people are really making up for the fact that you didn't get to do a lot last year. And so we have pretty much done all private parties for
Oh,
this
really?
year, and a lot of businesses. I do a lot of lunches. So, we go from like 11 to 2. And then the rest of the day is prep or calling, or, all like, the back end of things.
Yeah.
Um, and then I do some breweries too. But I'm not like, I don't know if it's my anxiety or HD, whatever, but I'm not a sitter. Like a lot of people here, the main question that everyone asks me is, where do you sit? Where is
Mm-hmm.
your main spot? And I never mean it to sound rude or anything, and I've never found a good way to answer it, but it's like, I didn't build a food truck to sit.
Right.
Like if I wanted to sit, I would be in an air conditioning brick and mortar with a
Mm-hmm.
dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
With the truck that we built, we are self-contained, so I can cook anything on the truck. We have an oven, we have flat tops, we have 2 burners, 3 compartment sink. We have a generator that I bought for a food truck. And so it goes underneath your truck, so you don't ever see the generator or
Mm.
anything like that. So we're really built to go anywhere.
Right.
2 of my favorite things that I've done is Sturgis, just because that was super fun and it's a fun story and
Mm-hmm.
everything. The other thing I did a couple of years ago, we did the Subaru Rally races, which is up in Minnesota. And so we went, it's the Ojibwe car rally.
Okay.
And it's sponsored by Subaru. So I don't know if it's a rule, but everyone has Subarus. And so we went up there and followed those guys around for a couple of days. So you're in the middle of nowhere. You are, driving to these fields, and you just pull in and you set up and you make really great food for people. Mm. And that to me is super rewarding and super fun. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a real passion for it. You did mention the pandemic, and you said you just kind of set up shop at this one particular corner. How did that affect your financial outlook? Did you guys struggle with it, or were you able to maintain?
No. Because I think, and not that I don't, I mean, I definitely have my followers. I have over 1,000 people on Facebook, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but to me, because I'm not a huge social presence, or, I don't do a whole lot with that. Mm-hmm. That's a really, I think that's great. So, I mean, I have people that support me. I have people come up all the time from Michigan and Detroit, and we talk shop about the city and we have some fun. So I do have those people, but, I'm not set up to sit somewhere. So I don't have that base established like some of the other trucks here do. So I would say we weren't half the sales, but we were it made a big difference.
Wow.
For sure. Wow. It was a struggle.
And that's coming around for you now?
Oh, yes. Like this year has definitely, like I said, we are booked till the end of August, and that's every day. I try to take a couple of days off, but that does not work at this point in the summer. But pretty much all of them are private parties. And then we have businesses that like once a month, they kind of book a truck, once a week or whatever like that. So we do that. So it's kind of back in full swing. I know that each state is different with kind of the mandate with COVID still and everything, but Fargo is pretty much like, we're just going to take the mask off and see how it goes kind of thing. So we don't have a lot of restrictions. Mm-hmm. I think I have friends out in the West Coast and that kind of stuff, and it's still kind of a big deal with, staying indoors and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's not necessarily like that here.
Yeah. So. And also talking about there, you guys have some pretty harsh seasons, right? So yeah. How do you handle that? Do you operate year round, or are you only seasonal?
No, and that was, I think, probably the biggest oversight on my part. Mm-hmm. And I would definitely implore people to do some research on how long your season is, because ours is, I start in May. I start on Mother's Day weekend, and I go to a flower nursery that is about 45 minutes out of town, and it's really wonderful, and people come and buy plants, and I sell food, and I've done that for 3 years now, so I've built up quite a following that, people know I'm out there, but really slow still, because it could be hailing that day. It could be raining. Yeah. It could be 100 degrees. Mm-hmm. You just never know. So that has been, I think that's been my biggest oversight, that, I was like, oh, I'm just going to make tons of money. And the other thing, it's like, oh, we're going to open in Sturgis and we're going to make all this money and everything's going to be great. Well, no one knows you. And I came back, and it's like, I would cold call people to, and they're like, well, we don't know who you are. And, and so I would really, and I mean, when you do a normal restaurant, you plan at least a year out for financials and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I really would ask people, if it's possible, really have that with your truck too. Because you really need to, because you have to have your supplies, and you can't be successful unless you do have a website. Right. And you can't be successful unless you look like you have a nice truck and everything is professional. Like you need the to-go boxes, you need the napkins, you need
Mm-hmm.
the forks, and that all costs money that, hopefully in your business plan, in your business model, you've put all that money into the price of whatever you're selling, but you still need money. And the hardest part is that it takes $2,000-3,000 to get the truck going every year. So every May, I have to have, $3,000 to get the food and the paper products and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, if you have a normal restaurant, you're maintaining. So
Right.
It's like you have your slow time and you have your busy time, but you're still always open making money. And it's been a struggle for me also, like trying to maintain a job that's going to hire you, that you can make any kind of money at for 6 months in the wintertime.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's also something to think about, because we go from May to October. I don't really ever start making money till July. And so it's like, it's really and in the summer months, everyone loves you and you're a superstar. In the winter months, no one knows who you are.
Yeah, so you're literally restarting every single year, almost from zero. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I also think there isn't a lot of food trucks here, because, and the food trucks that have persevered and have been successful are people who have come into this business with stable jobs that allow them to take the summers off. So I think that if you should really think about, if you're starting a truck, excuse me, that how long is your season? How much can you make? Because the other thing that I have the hardest time with, and I don't know why I can't figure this out. I mean, I've lived here 10 years, but I still have the city girl in me, where I came from very high volume bars and restaurants where I used to cook and work. And so when I always expect these huge crowds, and, you just don't get a big, you get crowds here, but they're like big for Fargo.
Right.
They're not big for California or, like, no.
That was a huge Fargo crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And I'm like, really? Because that was like a third of what I thought would, so I really, personally, I've struggled with that, and I just can't get out of my head. I'm always an overpacker. I'm always an over prepper, because you just never know, and I am not a truck that, some trucks are very into selling out, because they have, like a taco truck where all your stuff is heated for the day.
Yeah.
And so you can't reuse it.
Right.
And so they want to sell out, which is, I get and I understand, but mine, everything is cold. So it's like, if I don't sell it that day, well, I just go somewhere else the next day and sell it. So my overhead is very low. But I still, I show up at these things, and I think, there's going to be 1,000 people, and I don't think there's anything in Fargo that even has 1,000 people that come to. So that's been a big learning curve for me. But definitely the biggest oversight is thinking I'm going to make all this money in 5 months and I'm going to be okay. And that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So that's been a struggle for sure.
I'm curious, any thoughts towards a brick and mortar, or are you locked into food truck?
Nope. Because like when we started the conversation, I said I had every intention of doing a brick and mortar, but it was very important to me. And also like, my truck is all women, and I try to, I have, help some girls around here, advice, that kind of thing. Not that it matters if you're a man or a woman, but like, I really am trying to empower myself. I'm doing this on my own, and empower other women and my daughter to be
Oh, that's
like,
great.
you can do this, you know?
Yeah.
So I have had and been paying on the truck for 5 years. I did try to start a little cafe in a cute little bike shop downtown, and it didn't necessarily work out because it's a struggle here to find employees. And also another thing that I'll point out real quick is it's very hard to find employees here because you are seasonal. And the good people, I've had people who come in for interviews and they're really wonderful people, but I can't support them.
Yeah.
Because, like I can't offer them a full-time job. I can't offer them a job, a yearly job. So that's been a struggle trying to find people to work. I do pretty much everything myself because it's just hard and I don't think it's that a lot of people don't want to do it. It's like, you need a job that you can pay your bills. And I'm not necessarily that person to help you do that. So that's been kind of a struggle. But I have been paying on the truck for 5 years. We had a little bit of a snafu with the cafe, so it sent me back a little bit. But I have enough equity in the truck where I now can sell it. And I'm actually headed in August to Colorado to kind of check out some bars. Okay. I think that is going to be my next venture, because after doing this so long, and it's, what is really something I enjoy doing. And I worked at a bar for 12 years. I spent a lot of time in bars over my years, and I really enjoy the atmosphere. I DJ'd for 10 years, so I'm very much into the music scene. And so I really want to get back to making some money, having some fun. And not being in a 120-degree truck every day. Doing that. So.
I can definitely see how the food truck brings great benefits, but there's also, you can't duplicate that atmosphere that you're looking for in a food truck. You definitely have flexibility with a food truck that you could never have with a brick and mortar, though, correct?
That is correct. And I do struggle with that because when I'm and I absolutely, like I said, like I have so many wonderful people here that, you're here, and they come to the truck, they support me. I have my buddy who goes back to Michigan all the time, and he's like, can I bring you some burners back? Or, like people are really into it, and people are really supportive. And when you go to these places, and I think the most gratifying feeling and it never gets old is like people come up, and my favorite thing to do is make do it your own sandwiches, because they're like, what can I put on it? I'm like, you put whatever you want on it. You're eating it, kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm going to make you like the most amazing sandwich you've ever had. And so it's kind of fun to do that. I get a lot of people that come back and is like, aside from me saying that, they come back and they're like, that was like the best pastrami I've ever had. And I'm from New York, that's a big deal.
That's like a big deal.
Yeah. Like when someone tells me from New York with a New York accent, like that's the best pastrami they've ever had.
That's huge.
There's nothing, and then I'll have the other thing that I really enjoy is people come up and at the end of their sandwich and they'll give you a tip. And they didn't tip you before, maybe they did, but they give you a tip afterwards, and you're like, what's this for? And they're like, hands down, best sandwich ever. I needed to bring you this back just to let you know. And that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss doing the rally. I'm going to miss like when I was in Sturgis, I got to meet Carrie Hart, which was like, pretty amazing. And Travis Pastrana, which pretty amazing, so I've got to do really cool things. And when you have those moments that you're like, this is a an amazing experience, it's awesome. But I'm here to tell you, it's a young man's game. And I'm going to be 48 this weekend. And I'm just really ready to kind of, have something that's a little more not so hot and stressful, because it's a lot of stress. It's a very stressful environment. It's a stressful business for sure.
Well, I'm excited for you to take these next steps and capitalize off of the success you've had from your food truck.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have loved talking to you today. Thank you for sharing your background and incredible feedback. I think you've given people a lot of things to think about if they're looking to get into a food truck, or even if they have one.
Do a business plan.
Yeah, there you go. and go through the SBA. What a great option.
You know what? I'm telling you, Jay, it really, they have just done nothing but be supportive. And I'm a very much of a person with everything I've done in my life to try to keep things local, try to keep things small. And they're really a really wonderful source. And even in bigger towns, the SBA has mentors. Like here, unfortunately, they didn't have one for a food truck kind of thing.
Right.
But there's so many wonderful tools that the SBA uses and offers to people, especially when you just don't have an idea of being in the restaurant business or any of that. I mean, they have really wonderful people to help you through the whole process.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Julie.
You're welcome.
Once again, I want to thank Julie for sharing her amazing story about how she set up her food truck and all the trials along the way, and such great feedback and honesty if you're looking to get into the food truck business. If you're in the food truck business, maybe you can relate to a lot of the things that she said. And a reminder, this podcast is produced and sponsored by Order Up Apps. If you're looking for a better way to food truck, look no further than Order Up Apps. They're there for you, for your ordering and your marketing needs. They are official Square partners. They offer custom branded ordering apps and marketing tools that are just for your food truck specifically. So get your 14-day free trial at orderupapps.com today. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast as much as I have. And a reminder, my name is Jay McFarland. This is a Better Way to Food Truck podcast, and we're excited to bring you more stories of incredible food truck operators coming very soon.